You find yourself alone, riding in green fields with the sun on your face.
Gladiator was not just a movie. It was a myth reborn. Blood in the sand, fire in the air, and one man's roar that shook the Coliseum back to life. It brought back the ancient world with such force that audiences felt history breathing again. But beneath the thunder of battle, things got strange. The script was torn apart and rewritten on the fly. The star nearly walked away, and in one tragic twist, an actor actually died in the middle of production. Sets burned, tempers flared, and technology was pushed to eerie new limits, even bringing the dead back to life through ghostly CGI. This is the darker and stranger side of Ridley Scott's Oscar-winning epic, a story of chaos, accidents, and uncanny coincidences that shaped one of the most unforgettable films ever made. Here are 20 strange things you never knew about Gladiator, along with a few bonus secrets that will leave you seeing this classic in a whole new light. Number 1. Russell Crowe hated the script. Strange but true, Russell Crowe thought the script for Gladiator was awful. He flat out called the early drafts absolute garbage. What drew him in was not the words on the page, but the idea. A fallen Roman general who loses everything and then claws his way back toward justice in the arena. The concept had power, but the dialogue? Crowe reportedly told Ridley Scott, "I'm not saying these lines. They're terrible." The wildest part is that despite all the clashes over the script, Crowe went on to win the Academy Award for Best Actor. He delivered lines he once swore he would never say, and somehow made them unforgettable. It shows that even when a story feels broken behind the scenes, the right performance can turn it into a legend. Number 2. Oliver Reed died before finishing his scenes. The strangest tragedy of Gladiator came when Oliver Reed, who played the gruff gladiator trainer Proximo, died suddenly in Malta before he had finished his scenes. The circumstances were as wild as the man himself. Reed, known for his hard drinking, collapsed after a night out in a Valletta pub. Reports say the evening involved heavy drinking, arm wrestling, and rowdy contests with sailors, before he suffered a fatal heart attack. Here is the bizarre part. Instead of cutting him from the film, the production resurrected Reed using early CGI, a technology that was still in its infancy. For some of his final moments on screen, his face was digitally pasted onto a body double. The process cost around $3 million, a massive expense at the time, and sparked debate about whether it was ethical to digitally bring back an actor who had died. The strange legacy is that Reed's ghost now lives inside Gladiator. His last performance is part human, part machine, part memory stitched together by computers. Some fans even claim they can spot the difference, pointing to shadows and angles where his image does not quite look real, as if Proximo himself is flickering between life and afterlife on screen. Reed's untimely end gave Gladiator an unintended layer of myth, a story about death and resurrection mirrored both in the arena and in the film itself. Number 3. The opening battle burned a real forest. That haunting first battle in Germania, with smoke, fire, and chaos tearing across the screen, was not built in a computer. It was real fire on real trees. Ridley Scott received permission from the local forestry commission to burn down a patch of woodland that was already scheduled for clearing. With approval granted, the crew set the blaze, and suddenly they were standing in the middle of a real inferno. The heat was so intense that actors could feel it through their armor, and the flames moved faster than expected. Extras, horses, and crew had to be carefully managed so no one was injured. What you are watching is not just movie magic. It is a real forest being consumed by fire for the sake of one unforgettable opening. That raw danger, that sense of destruction, is why the scene feels so apocalyptic. You are not just seeing special effects. You are seeing real trees collapse, real embers flying, and a director willing to gamble with nature to bring his vision of war to life. Number 4. Real tigers in the arena. When Maximus steps into the Coliseum in Gladiator, he is not just fighting men. He is surrounded by 5 full-grown tigers, and they were real. No special effects, no animatronics. Each tiger was chained to the ground, but the chains were long enough to let them lunge and swipe dangerously close. To keep things from turning into a bloodbath, trainers waited just off camera, each armed with a tranquilizer gun, ready to fire if Russell Crowe got too close. The strange part is how reckless it really was. At one point during filming, a tiger lunged within inches of Crowe's head, its claws swiping the air so close he could feel the rush of wind against his skin. That moment you see Maximus flinch in fear, that is not acting, that is survival. What makes it even more bizarre is that Crowe insisted on doing the scenes himself. He wanted the audience to believe every second, even if it meant risking his life in front of a camera. The result is that the gladiator's courage was not only scripted, it was lived. The danger was so real that the line between performance and reality blurred. When you watch Maximus stare down the tigers, you are not just seeing a character fighting for his life. You are watching an actor in genuine peril, locked in an arena with predators that could have killed him. Number 5. The thumbs down isn't Roman at all. The iconic gesture of life or death, thumbs up to live, thumbs down to die, was invented by Hollywood. Historians believe Romans actually used a closed fist with a thumb hidden inside to spare a fighter. So Gladiator's most famous visual? A complete myth. Number 6. Joaquin Phoenix almost quit. Joaquin Phoenix, who played the unhinged Emperor Commodus, nearly walked away from Gladiator. In the weeks before filming, Phoenix was overwhelmed by crippling panic attacks. He convinced himself he was not strong enough, not commanding enough, not believable as the ruler of Rome. He even told Ridley Scott that he wanted to quit. Scott sat him down and reframed the role in the strangest way. He told Phoenix that Commodus was not meant to be powerful or intimidating. He was meant to be fragile, insecure, and emotionally broken, a boy in a man's position. Once Phoenix understood that weakness was the character's greatest weapon, he leaned into it with unnerving intensity. His trembling voice, his nervous tics, his strange intimacy with his sister, all of it was Phoenix turning his own fear into performance. The vulnerability that almost destroyed him became the key to the role. Here's the bizarre part. Phoenix would sometimes stay in character even when the cameras stopped rolling, walking around set with downcast eyes and muttering to himself as Commodus. Crew members recalled feeling uncomfortable around him, as if he was carrying the Emperor's paranoia and cruelty between takes. What began as an actor's doubt evolved into one of the most unsettling performances in modern cinema. The strange irony is that the role Phoenix nearly abandoned became one of his most celebrated, earning him an Academy Award nomination and cementing Commodus as one of the most disturbingly fragile villains in film history.
It's a question that we've all been asking and debating about is, what is the desire for blood sport and people, what is that?
Number 7. Russell Crowe's shoulder injury was real. Maximus's limp and struggle in the arena were not faked. Russell Crowe tore shoulder tendons during filming, and instead of halting production, he fought through the pain. Every time you see him wince, that is real agony. The strange part is that the injury actually made his performance more convincing. Maximus looked like a man carrying the weight of his battles. Even crew members admitted it blurred the line between acting and suffering, as if the role itself was punishing Crowe just as much as the Roman arena.
I think that it's got to be in the back of your mind that something can go wrong at any moment. These are sharp weapons. You've lost your temper yourself at somebody. You've been hauled off somebody by a referee. You don't know what can go wrong.
Number 8. The script kept changing during filming. At one point, there was no completed script. Entire speeches were written the night before filming. Crowe often complained to Ridley Scott, "Your lines are rubbish." Scott would tell him, "Fine, say something better." And sometimes that's exactly what ended up in the movie. Number 9. Commodus was even stranger in real life. The Commodus we see in Gladiator is twisted, insecure, and cruel, but the real emperor was even more bizarre. History records that Commodus regularly fought in the Coliseum, not as a ruler but as a performer, stepping into the sand with gladiators while drunk. Of course, the bouts were rigged. His opponents were armed with dull weapons, and Commodus carried a blade tipped with iron. He even demanded payment from the Roman treasury for each of his staged victories, as if bankrupting the empire was part of the show. The strangeness did not stop there. Commodus loved killing animals for sport. He slaughtered lions, leopards, and bears, but also more unusual prey like giraffes, elephants, and even ostriches, all while thousands of Romans cheered as if watching a circus. Ancient writers claimed he would decapitate ostriches and then parade around the arena holding the severed heads, grinning at the senators in the stands as if to send them a message. And unlike the film, his end did not come in the Coliseum. The emperor met his death in a bath, strangled by a wrestler named Narcissus after a failed poisoning attempt. The image is strange and almost poetic. The so-called god of Rome, obsessed with performing as a gladiator, reduced to gasping for air in the steam of his own chambers. Number 10. The CGI crowd was copied and pasted. There weren't thousands of extras in the Coliseum. There were only a few hundred. The rest were digital doubles, cloned, multiplied, and scattered through the stands. The strange part? If you freeze frame, you can catch duplicates of the same man cheering in 3 different seats. Number 11. Maximus's farm was real and dreamlike. The golden wheat fields that Maximus drifts through were filmed in the Val Orcia region of Tuscany, Italy, around Pienza and San Quirico d'Orcia. The famous approach along a cypress-lined track is the Terrapile Farm Road, a real path that locals still walk. Ridley Scott wanted a place that felt earthly and eternal at the same time, so the crew waited for late afternoon light that turned the wheat to liquid gold and let the wind do the rest. Here's the strange part. Visitors say the valley feels like a memory even before you step into it, as if you have been there in another life. Crew members recalled that the light shifted in a way that made the grain shimmer like water, and Scott leaned into that effect until the images hovered between reality and vision. The now iconic shot of a hand brushing the wheat was captured by a second unit at the end of the shoot, and many accounts say it was a double rather than Russell Crowe in that moment. Scott saw the footage and locked it in as a recurring image, a quiet omen that Maximus already had one foot in the afterlife. Today, fans still make pilgrimages to the Terrapile Road to recreate the walk. The eerie thing is how unchanged it feels. A real Tuscan field became a doorway to a Roman heaven, and it still looks ready to open. Number 12. Russell Crowe's famous line was improvised. "Are you not entertained?" wasn't in the script. Crowe shouted it on the spot, furious after a messy action scene, and Scott kept it. Strange how an angry ad-lib became one of the most quoted lines in movie history.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Number 13. The Coliseum itself was half digital. The lower tiers of the Coliseum were real, built as a set in Malta, but the upper levels, the arches, the sky above, were CGI. The mix of practical and digital gave it that surreal, dreamlike edge, as if history itself was bending around the story. Number 14. The Praetorian Guard costumes were wrong. Historically, Praetorian Guards wore purple and gold. In Gladiator, they wear black. Ridley Scott admitted it was a deliberate choice. He wanted them to look more menacing, like shadows of death standing over the Coliseum. Number 15. Russell Crowe nearly quit mid-filming. Crowe was so frustrated with rewrites and injuries that he threatened to walk off the set. At one point, he told Ridley Scott, "You're lucky I'm here at all." But Scott kept him on with persuasion and pressure from the studio. Number 16. The film nearly starred Mel Gibson. Before Russell Crowe became Maximus, the role was first offered to Mel Gibson. At the time, Gibson was fresh off Braveheart and considered one of Hollywood's go-to stars for historical epics. But he turned it down, claiming he was too old to convincingly play a Roman general. On paper, it sounds like a simple decision, but in hindsight, it feels oddly fated. Here's where it gets strange. Had Gibson accepted, Gladiator might have been a very different movie. Cleaner, safer, maybe even predictable. Gibson already carried the weight of Braveheart, and his Maximus likely would have been portrayed as a noble hero with a polished arc. Instead, the role fell to Russell Crowe, an actor who fought with the script, got injured on set, and channeled real pain into his performance. The messiness, the rawness, the unpredictability, that is what made the film feel alive. The odd detail is that Crowe was not Ridley Scott's first pick either. He was chosen almost reluctantly, a backup plan after the star option walked away. And yet, that accident gave the world a Maximus who felt rough around the edges, scarred, and strangely believable. It is one of those eerie what-ifs of cinema history. If Mel Gibson had said yes, Gladiator might never have carried its strange mix of beauty and brutality, and the film we know today could have been forgotten instead of legendary. Number 17. The score was accused of plagiarism. Hans Zimmer's score was iconic but strangely familiar. Some critics accused it of sounding too close to his earlier work in The Lion King. Zimmer denied it, but even today, fans notice echoes of Simba in Maximus's journey. Number 18. Ridley Scott used smoke and dust like paint. Scott filled scenes with smoke, ash, and dust, even when it made no logical sense. Why? He wanted every frame to look like an oil painting. Actors often complained they couldn't breathe. Scott told them, "It's worth it." Number 19. The haunted helmet. Russell Crowe hated wearing Maximus's bronze helmet, calling it suffocating and uncomfortable. After filming Wrapped, he gave one of the helmets to Ridley Scott as a gift. Over the years, the director kept it displayed in his office. The strange part is the rumor that followed. Some crew members claimed Scott would sometimes hear a faint metallic echo in the room, even when no one touched the helmet. He half-jokingly referred to it as haunted, like a ghostly reminder of Maximus. Of course, there is no proof of anything supernatural, but the story lingers as one of those on-set legends that feels too eerie to ignore. Whether it was just imagination or something stranger, the idea that a prop carried the echo of a character's spirit only added to the film's mythic aura. Number 20. The abandoned sequel by Nick Cave. The strangest fact of all is that Gladiator almost had a sequel written by musician Nick Cave, and it was unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. Cave's script resurrected Maximus from the afterlife, not as a man but as an immortal warrior cursed by the gods. Instead of dying in the Coliseum, he is pulled back into history again and again, forced to fight in one bloody war after another. Here is where the strangeness truly unfolds. Cave's Maximus marches from ancient Rome into the Crusades, then World War II, and even the battlefields of Vietnam. The script ends with Maximus sitting at the Pentagon in modern day, cursed to live eternally as a soldier of war. It was less of a sequel than a fever dream, part epic, part myth, and part supernatural horror. The bizarre part is that Cave wrote it completely seriously. Ridley Scott read it, Russell Crowe read it, and for a brief moment the idea of Maximus as an eternal spirit drifting through the bloodiest chapters of human history was very real. The studio, terrified of how strange and unmarketable it was, shut it down immediately. And yet, the script still circulates online, whispered about like forbidden scripture. Fans who have read it describe it as wild, brilliant, and unsettling, a story where Gladiator collides with reincarnation and cosmic punishment. The odd truth is that in another timeline, the world might have seen Russell Crowe charging through Vietnam with a sword, cursed by gods who refused to let him rest. If you've made it this far, you're in for a few hidden bonuses that most people never hear about. As strange as Gladiator was behind the scenes, a few extra details make it even wilder. Oliver Reed's character Proximo was finished using a patchwork of old recordings, meaning his final line in the film is literally a ghost speaking from fragments. Russell Crowe, still attached to the quieter side of Maximus, kept some of the props from his character's farm and brought them back to his own home in Australia, as if carrying a piece of that lost dream with him. And then there's the real Commodus, who was so unhinged he actually renamed Rome after himself, Colonia Commodiana. Between digital resurrections, actors taking souvenirs, and emperors rewriting geography in their own honor, the legend of Gladiator only gets stranger the closer you look. Gladiator wasn't just history on screen. It was chaos behind the curtain. Strange deaths, improvisations, and myths reborn in pixels and fire. And maybe that's why it endures, because Gladiator isn't just a movie. It's a legend stitched together from accidents, fury, and ghosts. So the next time you hear Maximus roar, are you not entertained? Remember, the real twist is that this film was never designed to entertain in the safe, simple sense. It was meant to challenge, to unsettle, and somehow that's what made it unforgettable. And if you want more strange and weird movie facts, the kind of behind-the-scenes details most people never hear about, make sure to like this video and subscribe. There are plenty more stories waiting to be uncovered. This is Strange Flick Facts, where we uncover the bizarre truths behind your favorite films.